My name is Kon Karapanagiotidis. I'm a son, brother, partner, and a friend. I'm the founder and CEO of the Asylum Seeker Resource Centre and a proud Melburnian and Greek Australian. I grew up in a country town called Mount Beauty, tobacco country. I have this photo that I look at often. It's of my mum and dad in the prime of their youth. My dad looking beautiful like a Greek James Dean, and my mum in the most beautiful summer dress. And I feel both a joy and a sadness when I look at that photo, because I think about the next 15 years they spent it on tobacco farms. I think about what a harsh life they had and how much they sacrificed for myself and my sister. Growing up in Mount Beauty was tough. While my parents were welcomed as a kid with a name like Karapanagiotidis and one of only two Greek families, there was a lot of racism. There was a lot of bullying. There was a lot of kids telling you to go back to where you came from. So at an early age, I learned the importance of standing up for what was right. And I learned the importance of what it felt like to be othered, to not be wanted, and to not be welcomed. And I took that with me for the rest of my life. We moved from Mount Beauty when I was 12 years of age in 1985. You know, my mum had been yearning to come to Melbourne and to be closer to their extended family. So we ended up at what was one of the 10 worst public schools at the time, according to the Herald Sun. And I was seen as a real outlier by other kids. And I got bullied through most of high school too. When I was really struggling as a teenager, I discovered the teachings of Martin Luther King. And it talked about the importance of not following the drumbeat of conformity, about being on the right side of history, of standing up for what was right. I remember reading about freedom rides and about the civil rights movement, and then my own experiences of racism and bullying got me to identify with sort of racial, social justice causes. And so those things combined, I'm like, I want to fight for human rights. I want to fight for justice. I want to fight for the underdog. And that's what I've spent my life doing.
Hi, welcome to the Asylum Seeker Resource Centre. My name's Kon Karapanagiotidis. I'm the CEO and founder of this centre.
I founded the Asylum Seeker Resource Centre when I was 28, and I was in a particularly dark and terrible space in my life at that time because my dad had died the year before, suddenly. And the thing that it reminded me most of is the preciousness and fragility of family, about defending that. I remember spending my weekends going around to not quite right stores. I remember grabbing furniture out of hard rubbish days to furnish the building. I remember having almost no one come and volunteer until a couple of months later when Tampa happened.
We will decide who comes to this country and the circumstances in which they come.
And everything changed.
What is going on Manus Island at the moment is a humanitarian crisis.
In search of peace. Instead, they've ended up in prison camps.
Detention centers.
They look more like prison camps.
Prisons.
Guantanamo Bay, down under.
A dysfunctional and cruel system.
How long are we going to spend our life in the prison?
Do you want? Freedom! What do you want?
Freedom! We have to stop this now. Until they are free, we need you to be their lifeline to freedom. So we start with this little food bank. Tampa happens and people are outraged. You got mums and dads going, here's $50. I can't keep screaming at the TV. I'm ashamed to be an Australian. Suddenly, instead of 3 people turning up to volunteer, at its peak, we had 1,400 at the Melbourne Town Hall in 2014 with a great late Malcolm Fraser hosting the night. We just kept growing and growing and growing to the point where we run now dozens of different programs. In any given year, the Asylum Seeker Resource Centre helps 7,000 people. We run our own little community health centre, human rights law program, food bank, meals programs, housing programs, women's empowerment programs, 2 social enterprises, 2 cafes in a partnership with Melbourne University. We run employment, empowerment, education, vet programs, financial aid programs. We train the next generation of young refugees. We also have a centre not just in Footscray, but one in Dandenong, a refugee resource hub. And we advocate and campaign at a national level all across Australia. We've built a movement of millions now, with, of course, the kindness and generosity of thousands of incredible staff and volunteers and hundreds of thousands of supporters. That's the power of passion and pathos and philotimo, the power of community and the greatness of the Melbourne community, the greatness of this city of ours. That's why I love Melbourne so deeply and I'm so proud of it, is that we are this extraordinary city full of incredible Indigenous, refugee and migrant people, one of the most multicultural cities in the world. And we've come together over more than 2 decades to say welcome. We, the people of Victoria, the people of Melbourne, have come together to say welcome.
Welcome to our first CEO Bulletin from our brand new home of hope in Footscray.
Here is why it is so deeply problematic. It is a turning point in our nation's history.
I'm here in the ACC Food Bank. I'm coming to you from Parliament House.
I need you to stand with me.
Because our politicians have abandoned them. We've kept our doors open from day one with the food they need for their families. Because food feeds the soul and the heart.
We're going to win this fight. Thank you.
Thank you for making this possible.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And to help keep the flame of hope burning brightly in the hearts of all. Thank you.
Over the last 2+ decades of running the ACC, I've seen the greatest moments of joy and the greatest moments of despair. The horrors of what I've seen done to people. The lives lost because of our cruel immigration policies. The families devastated. I've been in moments as a lawyer for people where they've heard you've been found to be a refugee, and to watch people just collapse in front of you with absolute joy. And at the same time, the sort of light coming back into them and the colour back into them because they're suddenly free. So that's what keeps me going, is hope, is philoxenia, is philotimo, is love, is idealism, is passion. Is that even at my age now, I'm just as passionate and fired up and intolerant of injustice as I was when I was 13 years old. And just as much I want to see change, and just as much I believe in the goodness of people and the goodness of Melburnians. Dad taught me the most precious lesson, which is you treat everyone the same, whether they have $1 or $1 million. You value people on their character. And I want to leave a legacy that my family can be proud of.